When most Ugandans hear the word aviation, two images come to their minds: a pilot in uniform or an engineer with oil-stained hands. But aviation is not just about who flies the plane or who fixes the engine. Aviation is an entire ecosystem, one that quietly powers trade, tourism, security, and national development. And in Uganda, the ecosystem is far bigger than what we have been told. When it comes to aviation, it's a full system from security to cabin crew managers, guys who handle cargo and transportation of things, let's say exports and imports. There are these guys who plan the flights, let's say the flight plans, those guys who organize the routes. Just like how bus companies are, all these guys are organized on routes. This bus is known that this bus goes to this place, goes from Kampala to Mbale, Kampala to Gulu, Kampala to Lira to this. Like, there are also those guys who are organizing that. In aviation, there are also guys who understand the weather, guys who predict weather, and guys who understand how best to navigate the weather. So these are the guys who deal with all those obstacles about weather and everything, dealing with, of course, navigation in air. Then there are guys who make the planes. That's another side of engineering. These are guys who make the planes, make the engines and maintain the engines, repair the planes in case of anything that comes up. So guys, aviation is not necessarily just about pilots as very many people think. Aviation is a very big system of very many workers coming to put together this very important sector in the world, because when aviation is involved, meaning tourism is part of it. Very many tourists come into the country, they all go through aviation. Very many things run through aviation, exports and imports, all these very many things run through aviation. So aviation is bigger than what you really think. In Uganda, if you want to do aviation and get the best out of it, the best place you'd ever go to is Sorority Flying School in the eastern side of Uganda. Now, Sorority Flying School gives you a 50% off the package price. The initial price for aviation is $50,000. That is the initial price that you would pay for the full package of aviation. But in Sorority Flying School, the government plays a part of paying half of that tuition. So it pays 50%. So you only have to pay $25,000. Of course, that is including tuition and I think accommodation. Then the rest is of course on you, but you pay $25,000 for a full package. And then the rest of the schools, trust me, you're going to be paying for everything differently. You end up paying about $60,000 or 70 to 80. Now, guys, to give you guys maybe a clear understanding of why I would prefer you to do aviation in Sorority Flying School. Now, doing aviation in Sorority Flying School definitely saves you the money. Of course, half the money off, and you get a full package. But if you want to save time, now a typical aviation study takes about 2 years to 3 years, but it's mostly 2 years. 2 years to study and get a license straight away in 2 years, and you begin working. But when you're doing it in Sorority Flying School, they're always... Now, I'm not saying this out of specialization. I've had so many friends who have gone through Sorority Flying School and are already pilots working in Uganda Airlines and all those other airlines. And they've told me their experience that the initial time for studying aviation is about 2 years. But in Sorority Flying School, there's a little bit of this and that. A license delays to come up. So most times you might end up like studying like for 3 years or even 3.5, depending on how fast you are. Of course, you have to pressure. It's like every school. Just like even if you're in university and you get, let's say, a retake and something like that, you have to push for it and finish it as fast as possible. But if you delay, definitely you will delay to get a license or get a degree. So it is how it is. It's just something that cuts across. So but of course, most of the government facilities are not really like, they don't give it so much pressure like how this other business sector is, because these guys always want to make sure that their clients return and they get reviews, and of course the ones who have gone through the school get to market their school. So they always prioritize giving comfortability and convenience wherever necessary, especially in getting license and everything and finishing your school as fast as possible. Yeah, so if you have the money to spend a lot of money, you can go into private schools that are all over Uganda. I'll just give you a small list of them at the end of this video. But if you're patient enough, you can go through flying school, search flying school, because basically they have the best pilots and the best training people and personnel. So you get the best and you get the full package. Now let's break it down to the packages. You might be asking yourself, like, what are the packages that aviation offers? Now, when you're beginning, there is an SPL, that is a student pilot license. Now, this one basically you only fly when you have a supervisor. You're not allowed to fly when you have no supervisor. He has to make sure he's there with you the whole time. And you're not allowed to carry anyone apart from a supervisor possibly. Then there is a private pilot license. That's a PPL. PPL, these two you can fly with a supervisor, but in most cases, at least you've gotten some experience, so you can fly alone. But you're not allowed. You're not allowed to carry anyone or cargo. You're also not allowed to get paid. It's actually illegal to get paid when you have a PPL. Then there is a CPL. A CPL is basically commercial pilot license. These are now guys who fly the Airbuses, the bigger planes that carry people. Yeah, and just to give you a small clue before I go onwards with the licenses. You see, with a PPL, like a private pilot license, yeah, the minimum average of hours supposed to fly to acquire it is about 45 hours of flights in air. Then for a commercial pilot license, the average is 200 minimum, 200 hours in flight. That's the experience needed for you to get a license. And then the highest license you can get from piloting is ATPL, that is airline transport pilot license. Now this one you get to specialize on what kind of plane you get to fly. You could fly a bit like an Airbus. I'm not well versed with the names of planes, but you can specialize. Now this is when you're specialized in a particular kind of plane. It could be a jet or something like that. But to fly a jet, since I mentioned jet, for you to fly a jet, you must have ratings. Now, in piloting, there are very different ratings. There is one called ME, that is a multi-engine rating. This gives you the privilege of being able to fly a plane that has more than 2 engines. So that's like a jet. Yeah, so guys, for you to acquire all this in a full package, you can get this in flying school, straight to flying school. But if you have the money to pay for each, because in these private schools you get to pay for one by one. So you first pay for SPL, finish, pay for CPL, finish, pay for PPL, finish, ATPL, finish, pay for ME, that is the multi-engine. Go, like, it's going to be very, very, very expensive. So please don't even try to do that. Now let's get back to the courses. The courses, there are a number of courses outside piloting, the license and everything. Now we're getting back to the ground of people who run the airport ground. Now the cabin crew members, cabin crew management team. These are the guys who handle, of course, the cargo transportation, export and everything, the waiting. Like, there's when you have to come with your luggage and it must be particular weight, because every plane has a minimum amount of weight it can carry to balance well in air. So these are the guys who are responsible for all that. They get to weigh the cargo and make sure it's the right weight the plane is supposed to carry. And of course, there's not that for every kilogram you get to pay something, which I don't know, but that's how it is. Someone told me that. And then there is a crew called the flight operators. Flight operators basically run almost the whole airport, because they're very responsible for monitoring the security, first of all, of the plane. They also organize flight plans. Now, flight plans basically which routes planes are supposed to go through to avoid crashing. So guys, all this is basically put together to make sure that there is no crashing, no accidents. That's the work of flight operators, and basically they do almost everything: check on security, the plane, and everything. Then there is aviation security. Of course, these are the guys who are trained to detect bombs, to detect any kind of insecurity which can happen in the airport. Guys, there's a course that trains people on customer care, on handling the tourists or people who are basically using the airport. This, of course, the clients. There's customer care service for those. Now this are I'm telling you careers of guys who are going to be able to run the airport on ground, not the fly though. Then there's engineering. Now, this is where you have to pay very keen attention. In Uganda, they don't offer engineering because we don't have companies which are built to build planes in Uganda. So if you study engineering elsewhere and come to Uganda, you won't find a job. Actually, engineers are scrapped off. That's what I heard from particular pilots. So engineers are scrapped off because there are no companies which offer building services. We don't develop our planes here. Planes are developed outside. So if you ever study engineering, you might have to go look for opportunities outside. So there's aviation engineering, there is radar engineering. For radar engineering, these are the guys who basically monitor systems, monitor the weather and everything around that. Now for radar engineering, if you want to do radar engineering, I was told you have to go to Kenya. That's where radar engineering is handled. So guys, that's it. That's what it is for aviation. So aviation isn't basically about piloting. You only have to ask yourself, where can I fit in my career? You could be an accountant. There are accounting opportunities in aviation. Now, don't necessarily look at airlines. There's so many services at the airport. There's so many services. Leave alone just even just like the aviation side. There is tourism. A lot of tourists use flights daily in Uganda here to travel to these different wildlife parks, different cities. So aviation there just necessarily just like be precisely on aviation. Aviation cuts across tourism, hospitality. It just depends on how creative you are. How creative are you? The question is like, how creative are you to blend in your skill set and offering value to the aviation industry? So it is what it is. So guys, I'll be leaving a link on which schools you can go to, and also just before this vlog ends, I want to give you guys one last point. Please don't go to a school which is not licensed. A school which is not licensed to teach aviators, please don't go to schools, because even if you studied and finished everything, you will never be employed, because the guys who employ know the schools which have been licensed to teach aviators and everything concerning aviation. So it is what it is, guys. If you've come this far, please subscribe or drop your comment down below. Any question, I'll be willing to answer any question. And in case you want deeper knowledge, in case there's more specific details you guys want, I'll be interviewing a pilot. That's of course if you guys want particular details. I'll have to interview a pilot and let him answer the questions by himself, since he's more in the system than me. I basically talk to them and get information and I bring it to you guys. So if you come this far, please subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, and turn on the notification bell just in case you haven't, so that in case anything drops, it's always going to be about value, guys. This year is about value, next year is about entertainment. So please, ciao guys.